Join us on Serious Aging as we journey through the science of longevity, featuring in-depth interviews with experts who share their fascinating new insights on living healthier and longer.
So let's begin. Introduce you. This is Ki Siadatan. He is going to be speaking today with me on the Serious Aging podcast about Alzheimer's and dementia. So, Ki, can you give us a background? Well, maybe we'll start with an easy question of what is Alzheimer's?
You got it. So, well, first of all, background, thank you for having me. It's great to connect. My background is that I've been in the world of senior living and senior health for, about 15 years. And I've spent a lot of that time focusing on dementia. And what dementia and Alzheimer's is. So basically, dementia is an umbrella term for a variety of neurodegenerative diseases, right? Diseases that impact a person's cognitive abilities and put them in a decline. And Alzheimer's is just one of those diseases that fall under that umbrella. Often we do see people kind of interchange those terms, right? But that's really not the way it should be. Again, dementia is the umbrella term, and then Alzheimer's is one of those diseases.
I've talked about that with my mother, who's a care manager, extensively about a lot of people think that the two of them are really different, and they are different, but they're different more in the way that a square and a rectangle are different than in being completely separate things.
Yeah, I've usually described it to folks as, okay, you've got the term food and cheeseburger. They're two completely different things, right? Food is something we eat. Cheeseburger is a specific food we eat. Same thing here.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about what you're working on in Alzheimer's and in the space.
You got it. So, where I'm looking at is we're living in a pretty amazing time, and that is that there's more research being done now than ever before to combat Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative diseases. And part of that is, so you've got, number one, a lot of research. There's a lot of research that's going on. We've got new medications that are coming online. In fact, 2 that just got approved in the last year that are slowing the progression of the disease. But you also have a lot of technologies and other things that are coming our way to help folks who are afflicted with dementia and those who care for them live a little bit of a higher quality or better quality of life. And so what I do is I put the spotlight on those. I have a site called brainmeetsbites.com that I run with my partner, Rebecca Keith. And what we do is we publish articles regularly talking about a lot of things that are coming our way with respect to the various, whether it be various technologies that are coming our way, research that's being done, or it could be policies that are impacting our aging population afflicted with dementia. So what I do is I put the spotlight on those, and I interview folks, and I talk to folks who are involved in that research. And then I also put on educational events, seminars, and things like that to, again, provide a broader amount of information to folks and to bring thought leaders together around the world to discuss how we're going to combat, eradicating dementia once and for all, while we also try to give those who are afflicted with it the best life they can have.
That's a great goal. Is there any really cool or exciting updates or research that you could share?
Well, here's the thing. I think what I'm excited about is that in our age of supercomputers, right? We are able to share information about research that is being conducted around the world better than ever before. And I will give a lot of credit to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation through something called the ADDI that they brought forth, which is the Alzheimer's Data Disease Initiative, right? And in essence, and I'm going to maybe oversimplify here, but what it is they are harnessing the power of supercomputers based around the world to gather the research that's being done in all different corners of the world. And what they're doing is they're taking a look at somebody who might be doing research, let's say in Seattle, Washington, versus somebody who's doing research in Paris, France, and those computers are finding, possible correlations or things where, connecting that information. So more than ever before, we're seeing more sharing of information and more people focused on it than ever before. And for that reason, I am very optimistic that we're going to start to see more and more results from that research, right, that are going to lead to trials and eventually, knock on wood, right, an eventual cure for some of the dementias that we're battling. So that's one of the things that I'm really excited about, is just the research, the amount of research, and the ability to communicate. And I'm also really excited about the fact that, we are, and for some, what I'm about to say next might sound a little bit like sci-fi, but I do feel like in the next, 15, 20 years, we could start to see some benefits from quantum computing. And what quantum computing is it's basically our most powerful supercomputer today on steroids. I won't go into what quantum computing is specifically. It's a little bit too scientific, but bottom line is we're going to have computing power like we've never seen in the history of computers. And those supercomputers are going to be able to take a look at data at a level and a speed at which we've never had before. And that also gives me a lot of optimism that we're going to have more tools, more powerful tools at our disposal to come up with an eventual solution to basically fighting and eradicating these diseases.
Yeah, that's one of the techniques that I've been hearing about, of people are looking at people that have diseases and they're just running them through AI models and super fast supercomputers just to find a giant population data set and see if there's a correlation between them. Here's 50,000 people that have heart disease. Can you find something that researchers missed? And I'm sure that's exactly what quantum computing will help with Alzheimer's.
It will. Quantum computing, again, it's going to be at a level, there's, for example, math equations today that would take our most powerful supercomputers that we have today. It would still take them, over 240 years to solve that one very complicated math problem. A quantum computer is going to be able to solve it in about 100 seconds. So, again, it's just the power of quantum computing with AI and machine learning is going to be a game changer, not just for things like Alzheimer's, dementia, but for other illnesses like cancer, and heart disease. So again, I feel like we are on the doorstep of some pretty amazing advancements. But in the meantime, there's a tremendous amount of other technologies that are coming to available to us today to help folks battle with the challenges that they're facing day in and day out right now. And there's other ones. I got to tell you, one of the ones that I'm really just a huge fan of, Story, and it's STORII. Cameron Graham and his team at Story, what they're doing right now, they're using a tremendous technology, the telephone, right? Something that many of our folks who are older today, it's a technology they're used to. But what Story does is it calls them. And it will ask a series of questions, jogging that individual's memory. And they're speaking into a phone, something that's very natural for them. And in the process, they are capturing those memories. They're recording those memories. They're putting them somewhere for families to be able to access later and listen to these stories of their loved ones, basically just, relate, different aspects of their lives. So whether it's, technologies that are going to help us combat the disease or technologies that are just allowing us to capture the memories before they're gone, there's just a whole lot of things out there to be excited about.
Yeah, that strikes really close to home for me as well. My grandfather passed away shortly before COVID, and maybe a year and a half before he passed away, my brother and I grabbed a Yeti microphone and interviewed him and just wanted him to give us maybe 2 or 3 hours of stories about where he grew up, how he met our grandma, all sorts of things. And we recorded it for fun. I think it came out of something from the Silicon Valley Senior Roundtable of go interview your grandpa. Someone gave me that advice, and we did it. And he passed away shortly thereafter. And putting that audio up and giving it to my grandma, it really helped her through the process. It helped us. We like to capture the story, but yeah, being able to remember was just so powerful. And I'm really grateful that we chose to do that, because you don't know how much time you have left until it's gone.
Definitely. And first of all, I'm sorry for your loss, but yeah, what a tremendous gift you were able to give your grandmother and the rest of the family to be able to capture that. And then I think, again, those are the things that, things that people are doing, big and small, right, to impact the lives of those afflicted with this terrible disease, and to give them, moments that they can relive, moments that they can, touch, and capturing them, and also, the other thing is to give folks who are impacted with this disease, dignity and quality of life in their final years. So again, there's some amazing people out there, many who go uncelebrated, who are doing tremendous work in caring for our loved ones who are afflicted with dementia.
Let's talk about that a little. We've talked about the really advanced technology and the light at the end of the tunnel, but that's at the end of the tunnel. It's not here today.
Right.
What is being done today that excites you, or you think is a good practice for Alzheimer's?
Well, I'll tell you. Let me touch on a policy thing, because in our recent political discourse, this has come up, and I hope that it's not forgotten now that election season is beyond us. But there are many unpaid caregivers. These are spouses who are at home, who are having to take care of their loved one who's impacted with dementia, right? Many of them want to keep their loved one at home, or maybe they're having to juggle between still maybe working or leaving work to take care of their loved one, and there are relatively few resources available to them. And so one of the conversations that's been had quite a bit in the last political season has been, how do we provide some income to those unpaid caregivers who are trying to take care of their loved one at home, right? And so there's various programs and policies that are being discussed. One is the GUIDE program that has been I'm going to call it beta tested right now, where Medicare is trying to see if they can give people who have been diagnosed with a disease of dementia, right, have a dementia diagnosis, giving their loved one some income to allow for care to be brought into the home, or offset the care that loved one is providing. And there's other conversations that are being had. For example, doing away with the spend down model, right? And for those that may not be familiar with that, for folks who need to get access maybe to a little bit of extra resources or help, the current model has been, well, you've got to deplete and exhaust all of your assets before you qualify, right? And folks are saying, listen, you shouldn't have to do that. You should not have to deplete all of your assets just to get a little bit of help. And so I think that is something that I'm encouraged by, is that we're finally having that conversation, and people are starting to take it a little bit more seriously. So I'm actually hopeful that we put better systems in place so that those, unpaid caregivers, right, the unsung heroes can get a little bit of relief, right, and while they're trying to do the best they can to care for their loved one who's got dementia.
And I was an unpaid caregiver for 3 years for my grandmother as well. So I really understand that. I was really grateful to spend the time with her and be able to go through the transition from being in her home to being in a facility. But yeah, it is an inordinate amount of work, and I learned a lot. I know I made a ton of mistakes, and so when I had help, any kind of help, whether it was like an occupational therapist that would help her sit and stand and walk, who would come in after like a hospital discharge, it really was appreciated, and I was grateful that those programs existed and were able to make me not have to do it alone.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, and first of all, kudos to you for, again, providing that care. And I'll tell you, especially for our older population that all of a sudden become caregivers to their loved one, right? Um, you know, Depending on what study you look at, and the numbers will vary, but they're all very high. And that is that more than 80% of caregivers end up declining faster and passing quicker than their loved one who has been afflicted with dementia, just because of the stress and the toll it takes on that person for becoming a caregiver. And I will tell you that that's one area that we as a society have got to do better, right? We've got to take better care of the caregivers, because again, too often that burden that is put on them is causing their decline, and at a much more rapid pace than the person who's actually been afflicted with the disease.
Yes, I've seen that time and time again. So, and we're also talking about Alzheimer's, which is a whole different barrel of fish. Normally, I guess there's a couple things. So I was able to act as a caregiver for my grandmother before any cognitive impairment, but there's two major things that happen to families that sort of shift away from family caregiving really being an effective option. And one is them being able to use the toilet. The second is Alzheimer's. And both of those are really important, I guess, quality of life metrics that I guess it's the reason why you call professionals or have to get that extra level of support, is this goes beyond what families are normally able to deal with.
Yeah, no, and definitely professional help is really, really key. Having a team that can help you, so that you're not doing it alone, even if it's a group of family members. When you're dealing with somebody who's got Alzheimer's or another dementia, it is a 24/7 level of care. For those folks who might be sundowning, those folks who might be wandering a lot more at night, they might become a wander risk, and you're worried about them walking out the door. That is a very real challenge that people have to deal with. And so again, for one person or even a couple of people to deal with that, it can become very, very hard. And as the dementia progresses, because it will, it is a matter of when, not if, it will progress, right? And especially as it becomes harder, getting professional help is really, really important. And there again, we've got to make sure that people have the resources to be able to get the help that they need. And I think that we can sit here and talk about the various technologies and things that are coming our way or might be even out there today. But, I think one of the key areas that we've got to focus on is how do we provide more resources so that folks can get the help that they need? Because currently we don't have enough resources.
Definitely. And I remember, so my mother also got into care management because she was taking care of her mother who had Alzheimer's disease. And at that time, memory care was sort of a new thing. And I think this is 20 years ago or so. And now it's almost a part of many regular assisted living facilities and places in the Bay Area, but it's not everywhere. And when we talk about memory care, we're talking about the special facilities within assisted living that help deal with Alzheimer's, dementia, and cognitive impairment. And so, I want to give a shout out to the people that both build those facilities to create the resources and staff them, because they have a whole separate playbook that's different from everyone else.
There are tremendous folks out there doing great work, right? Congregate care environments, right? Assisted livings or standalone memory cares do amazing work. Adult daycare facilities do tremendous work, right? And I got to tell you that these folks are amazing people, right? They love our loved ones. They take care of them. They look after them. It takes a special person. It is not easy. It is not easy to do that kind of work. But the folks who do it and do it really well, they have big hearts and they got a lot of love, and they are there, right there in the trenches with us to take care of our loved ones, and they're tremendous resources.
Absolutely. So shout out to everyone working in memory care. Thank you.
Sure, for sure.
So let's talk about some of the other exciting things in Alzheimer's. So I know this year I've been keeping track of a couple things, and we talked about, I guess, long-term cure. That's what everyone wants. it doesn't exist today.
Mhm.
But there are some new things that are coming out, like tests.
Mhm.
So there are things like the mental exams and different, I guess, PDFs that you can go through that sort of give you an idea of how someone's cognitive level is. But then there are now emerging blood tests and things like that
Mhm.
that can possibly give you 6 months or 6 years of advance notice that Alzheimer's or dementia is coming. Can you share anything about that, or how you think that will change?
Yeah, so let's broaden that a little bit. So basically, first of all, right now, being able to catch it or diagnose earlier is absolutely important. And there's a variety of different advancements that are coming our way. Some involve blood tests, right? There's some other things that are coming our way that might even be more predictive than blood tests. And you were talking earlier about AI. There's even things that are being harnessed utilizing AI to catch little indicators by looking at our medical charts that might be able to, say, hey, there's a risk here for dementia, right? And so early detection is absolutely important. And then what does that do? Then that allows you to start to do certain things, certain interventions earlier, right? Pharmaceutically, right? We talked a little bit about the medications that I was discussing earlier. And so, for example, there's donanemab and lecanemab, right? Those two medications were approved by the FDA. And again, those are medications that if you go through certain procedures and you are deemed to be a candidate for those medicines, right, then those medicines could potentially slow the progression of the disease. But there's other things that people can do. I will give a shout out to Silverado and their Nexus program, which is, just by doing things like, daily physical exercise, right? Exercising the brain, things like, social engagement, things like that allow an individual to also slow the progression of the disease, right? By exercising the hypothalamus of the brain. There's a lot that's being done out there that folks can do. And the sooner they get started on those things, obviously the better. So having an early diagnosis is really, really important. But the bottom line is yes, knowing in advance is really important. But let me also tell you that with that comes other ethical conversations, right? There are some folks that will say, absolutely, I want to know. I want to know if I'm going to be, diagnosed or I'm going to be challenged with dementia. There's other folks that might want to say, no, you know what? I don't want to know,
Sure.
right? And so how do we handle that? How does our medical community handle that? And I think that's one of the things that we need to discuss moving forward as well, are the ethical implications of some of the things that are coming our way, because not everything is going to be welcome news to all. And so, it starts with how we train our physicians and the medical schools. They definitely need to have more education around dementia, because, as much as we think that our doctors are amazing, kudos to anybody who goes through medical school and becomes a physician. But I got to tell you that all the ones that I've spoken to say they did not get enough training around dementia, right, while they were in medical school. So, making sure that not only are they informed, but also informed about the various, ethical implications of the various technologies and procedures and systems that are coming our way. So, again, we have to have a conversation as a society around these things and make sure that as more and more of these things become available to us, that we're utilizing them in an ethical fashion for everybody.
And I'd almost make a very slight argument that once it happens, it's a one-way street right now.
Mhm.
And there are some pretty serious consequences to yourself, your family members, maybe your finances to having Alzheimer's. It makes you more susceptible to scams and people taking your money, and maybe driving becomes a different risk. And so even if you don't know, someone needs to know,
Right.
in your family.
Right.
So it is an interesting ethical quandary, but yeah, it's not something that you can just ignore. Someone has to do something about it, even if it's just making a suboptimal decision of how they're going to manage it going forward.
Right, right. Well, and again, though, but that's the conversation we need to have, right? Because you have to take into account privacy. You have to take into account, right, somebody's rights, and their right to privacy, their right to, have some say in their own care. And I think, again, these are all conversations we need to have. And I think that's one of the things that I try to do in the work that I do, which is, let's have these conversations. Some of them may be very difficult, but let's have the difficult conversations. Let's eradicate the stigmas that are out there with dementia, right? Let's get more people aware of what it is, because the chances are anybody who's listening to this conversation, you either know somebody in your family that's been afflicted with dementia, or somebody in your circle of friends that's been afflicted with it. The numbers of folks battling dementia are rising and rising exponentially. So as this is becoming more and more prevalent in society, we as a society need to know how to interact with those folks, how to, have these difficult conversations. We need to have cities that become dementia-friendly certified cities.
Absolutely.
So that they know how to manage and serve the seniors that live within their communities who are afflicted with dementia, so that they are still able to function within their communities and not be stigmatized. So again, these are conversations that all need to be had.
And I will say, it's not a death sentence. Like, you can still do stuff with dementia and Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
I know my mother was in the newspaper, actually, because she kind of led an art program. And so my grandmother was other grandmother, not the one that I was a caregiver for.
Right.
She was in a memory care, and she had been artistic her entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't change once she had dementia and Alzheimer's. She still did watercolor, she did painting, all sorts of stuff. And they're great. We still have some of them today in my parents' house. It's there are things that don't go away, but there are other things that change.
Well, and I got to tell you, one of the advices I've always given families is, let's not focus on the things that our loved one can't do anymore. Let's focus on what they can do today, because there's so many things that somebody who has been, diagnosed with dementia can do today. And let's focus on those things. Let's celebrate the things that can happen right now, right? And let's focus on those. And when you do that, that's when I find that it takes some of that stress and burden off of families, where they're not having to live up to what the individual was able to do, let's say 10, 20 years ago. Let's take a look and celebrate those small victories that are happening each and every single day.
Awesome. So before this conversation, you and I talked real quickly that you were actually working on a project in Alzheimer's. A book. Do you want to share a little bit about that, or is it still under wraps?
No, you got it. So in just a few weeks, I've got a book, and it's about a character named Rosemary Rabbit. It's a children's book where it's helping explain via a very I hope heartwarming story about Rosemary Rabbit, who visits her grandfather, who is in a memory care facility, and it just talks a little bit about how she, as a young child, learns to interact with her loved one who's been afflicted with this disease. And my goal in publishing this book and putting it out there is to get a conversation going with kids, to help them better understand, so that, again, we can eradicate the stigmas.
Sure.
But also, it is really important to get young people to become more aware and more involved, so that they might become that future researcher that finds that cure, so that they might become that future caregiver that's going to care for our loved one, right? And to get them to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to go and volunteer and put in some time in a memory care facility, and put a smile on the face of somebody who has been dealt this unfortunate blow. So my goal with this book is to just get the information out there about dementia, and to reach kids, and especially kids who have a grandparent or a loved one who's been diagnosed with that. Help them better understand that this is still my grandfather, this is still my grandmother. They still love me just like they always have. And here's how I can love them back. And so that's the purpose of the book. And again, the book is going to be published in just about 6 weeks.
Awesome. I'll definitely get a copy, and we'll share it at that time. But thank you so much. Is there anything else you wanted to go over that we haven't touched on?
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate being able to have this conversation and join your program. And just, I am an eternal optimist. And while I know that some days, we can be hard, especially for those folks who are, again, either have been diagnosed with dementia or caring for a loved one who has dementia, and just know that I am encouraged by the fact that around the world there are a lot of people doing amazing things, big and small, each and every day. And when I see so many folks who are dedicating themselves to either caring for somebody who's been, diagnosed with dementia, or, trying to fight the courageous battle of eradicating it, I'm encouraged when I see all these amazing people coming together, working together, and doing what they do. So to anybody who is listening to this, who is fighting that battle, who is caring for someone fighting that battle, just know that you are amazing, and what you do is appreciated.
Thank you so much. It's a really good and positive ending on a fairly difficult topic. So thank you for joining, Ki. I really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone listening on SeriousAging.com's podcast. Hopefully we'll have more great interviews like this in the future. And Ki, would love to have you back after you've published your book.
Sounds great, Andrew. I look forward to being back.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.